If you react the wrong way during a fight with a woman, you can quietly destroy the relationship, even if you think you're doing the right thing. The most important thing is knowing what type of conflict you're actually in. Because each one requires a completely different response. The biggest mistake men make during arguments is reacting emotionally instead of strategically. Before you say anything, you must identify the type of conflict you're dealing with. There are 3 types. Mix them up, and you lose. Type 1. Value conflict. The most dangerous one. A value conflict happens when you and a woman cannot agree on basic rules of the relationship. You raise a concern. She replies, "I'm doing nothing wrong. This is normal. I have the right." This can be about boundaries, responsibilities, behavior, travel, lifestyle, how problems should be expressed, or what a real man should or shouldn't do. The core issue is simple. She has one model of male behavior. You have a completely different one. There can be hundreds of these friction points. And if you don't align on these foundational rules, the relationship becomes like trying to install Android on an iPhone. Technically possible, but broken, unstable, and painful. The worst part is that this problem usually doesn't show up in the first month. It appears later, when emotions are strong, attachment exists, but understanding is gone. You feel close, but you can't communicate. Here's the important truth. In a value conflict, a woman will not truly give in, even if she wants to. Not because she's stubborn, but because she genuinely believes she's right. Human beliefs get cemented during adolescence and almost never change, especially after the age of 20 to 25. So you end up in a paradox. Emotions pull you together. Beliefs push you apart. Conflict. Temporary peace. Another conflict. Over time, the negativity begins to outweigh the positive emotions. And sooner or later, someone leaves. Here's the trap most men fall into. When a man feels she's about to leave, he panics and says, "Fine. Let it be your way." He betrays his own values to save the relationship. Yes, it may work for a short time. But long-term, this creates a dead end. If you fully give up your position, you don't become loving. You become internally broken. And compromises in value conflicts rarely work anyway. Why? Because both sides end up doing things they hate. You feel resentment. She feels pressure. Everyone loses. So when is it worth continuing? If you have children, the only thing that can help is maturity, self-control, and intelligence. If you don't have children, staying usually becomes a strategic mistake. In most cases, one partner keeps conceding, while the other keeps pulling the rope harder. Okay, but that's still not enough. Even when both sides make small concessions, the core problem remains. Now let's talk about the second type of conflict. This one is the most common. And unlike value conflicts, this type can actually be solved. This is called a situational conflict. A situational conflict is not about beliefs or values. It's about circumstances, stress, emotions, timing, or miscommunication. Something happened. Someone is tired. Someone misunderstood something. Someone reacted emotionally. Examples are simple. She had a bad day. You said something without thinking. She felt ignored. You didn't text back fast enough. She interpreted your tone the wrong way. You were distracted. She was overwhelmed. None of this is about core values. It's about the situation. Here's the key difference. In a situational conflict, both of you actually want peace. You're not enemies. You're just temporarily out of sync. But this is where most men still mess it up. The biggest mistake men make here is trying to win the argument. They start explaining, defending, justifying, proving logic, facts, Details. Timelines. What really happened. Why she's wrong. That feels rational. But it's the fastest way to escalate the conflict. Why? Because in situational conflicts, a woman is not asking for logic. She's asking for emotional alignment. When you explain instead of align, she feels unheard. When she feels unheard, she pushes harder. Raises her voice. Brings up old things. Tests your reaction. And now a small situation turns into a big fight. The correct response is counterintuitive. You slow things down. You lower the emotional temperature. You acknowledge the emotion first, not the facts. Not apologizing for things you didn't do. Not betraying your values. Just recognizing the feeling. I see why that upset you. I get how that looked from your side. I understand why you felt that way. That's it. Once the emotion drops, logic becomes possible. Not before. Here's the most important rule. Never try to solve a situational conflict while emotions are high. You don't fix fires by throwing fuel on them. Give space if needed. Calm energy. Short responses. Controlled tone. Situational conflicts are like waves. If you don't fight them, they pass. And here's the reward. When you handle situational conflicts correctly, a woman feels safe with you. Not controlled. Not dominated. Safe. And safety creates attraction, not weakness. Handled wrong, these conflicts slowly poison the relationship. Handled right, they actually increase trust. Now there's one more type of conflict. The most confusing one. The one that destroys relationships silently if you don't recognize it. This is the most confusing type of conflict. Because on the surface, it looks emotional. But underneath, it's a test. A test conflict happens when a woman is not reacting to the situation itself, but to your strength, boundaries, and self-control. She may not even be aware she's doing it consciously. Nothing serious happened. No real problem. But suddenly, there's tension. Complaints. Accusations. Emotional pressure. She might say things like, "You never care. You're just like all the others. If you loved me, you would." The words sound emotional, but the goal is not resolution. The goal is to see how you react. Do you stay calm or lose control? Do you hold your frame or collapse? Do you chase approval or stay grounded? Most men fail here because they respond like it's a situational conflict. They explain. Apologize. Try to comfort. Try to prove love. And that's exactly what makes things worse. Why? Because tests are not looking for reassurance. They are looking for stability. When you over-explain, she feels you're unstable. When you beg or chase, she feels you're weak. When you get angry or defensive, she feels unsafe. The correct response is simple but hard. You stay calm. You don't overreact. You don't argue the frame. You don't try to convince. Short. Grounded. Controlled. I hear you. We'll talk when things are calm. I'm not going to argue like this. No drama. No anger. No pleading. This sends a powerful signal. You are emotionally solid. You're not shaken by pressure. You don't need approval to stand your ground. And here's the paradox. When you stop trying to win these moments, the test usually ends on its own. But if you keep failing them, something dangerous happens. Respect erodes. Attraction fades. And the relationship slowly shifts into imbalance. Now let me be very clear. This does not mean being cold, cruel, or dominant. It means being stable. There's one final piece most men miss. And it determines whether a woman sees you as a safe leader or just another emotional participant. The final piece to understand is this: stability is more than staying calm once. It's about consistently holding your frame every single time. Every test she gives you, big or small, is a chance to show that you are anchored, grounded, and predictable under pressure. Most men fail here because they treat a test like a regular argument. They explain. They defend. They try to prove themselves. That only shows fragility, not strength. The correct approach is simple in words but hard in practice: short, grounded, controlled responses. You don't need to explain, argue, or convince. You only need to hold your stability. Examples of the right response: I hear you. We'll talk when things are calm. I'm not going to argue like this. Notice how nothing is overexplained. Nothing is emotional. Nothing begs for approval. That's exactly the power of stability. It communicates strength without aggression, calm without detachment. And here's the key: consistency over time turns these tests into respect. If you respond calmly once, it might be a fluke. Respond the same way every time, and attraction deepens automatically. Fail a few times, and the opposite happens: tension builds, respect erodes, and the relationship slowly drifts into imbalance. Now let's break down the subtle ways she might test you, and how to respond without losing control. 1. The accusation test. She might say, "You never listen to me." Goal: she's not really accusing, you're being tested. Response: I hear you. Why it works: short, calm, grounded. You acknowledge without overreacting. 2. The comparison test. She says, "You're just like my ex." Goal: see if you become defensive or chase approval. Response: I'm not going to argue about that. Why it works: maintains your frame without escalation. 3. The guilt test. She says, "If you loved me, you would have." Goal: trigger emotional reaction to measure your control. Response: we'll handle this when we're both calm. Why it works: shows emotional stability. You're in charge of your reactions. 4. The attention test. She complains about small, irrelevant things to see if you overreact. Response: I hear you. Optional: step away calmly if it escalates. Why it works: you acknowledge, but you don't chase. You remain anchored. 5. The push-pull test. She alternates between warmth and coldness to provoke a reaction. Response: stay consistent. Act normal. Continue your day. Why it works: consistency builds trust and attraction. Chasing or overreacting destroys it. Remember this: the words themselves are not the problem. Your reaction is the problem, or the solution. Every calm, short, controlled response strengthens attraction. Every overreaction, explanation, or chase weakens it. Here's the ultimate takeaway: passing tests is not about winning arguments or proving love. It's about showing stability, consistency, and emotional control. Every time she tests you and you respond calmly, short, and grounded, you're sending one clear message: you are a man who can be trusted, who can lead without controlling, and who does not need constant approval to stay firm. Respect grows. Attraction deepens. Tension fades. And the relationship moves toward balance, where she feels safe, but still excited. Fail a test, and the opposite happens: respect erodes, attraction fades, and minor tensions spiral into bigger conflicts. The principle is simple, yet most men never master it. Stay calm. Keep your responses short. Hold your frame consistently. Never chase approval. Never overreact. Do this every time, and you will transform every test into trust, respect, and attraction. Stability is not about being cold. It's not about being aggressive. It's about being anchored, emotionally solid no matter the storm. Remember, a calm, controlled, consistent man is magnetic. One who can weather tests without drama is not just seen, he's felt. And that feeling creates the strongest form of attraction there is. This is the type of emotional mastery that separates ordinary relationships from ones where respect and desire grow naturally, without force or drama.